What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Masters of the Universe Club Grayskull review, and we're taking a look at definitely a big figure when it comes to this particular line, this particular style, and then for me personally, because I do not have her Classics counterpart. I just don't have it. I did not sub at that time, so I don't have a Shadow Weaver in my collection. I don't have one on my shelf, and when I found out this one was coming, I kind of stopped worrying about it because it looks so much more like what I've always wanted on my shelf. Of course, we're going to find out. We've got her here in the slipcover, so Castle Grayskull, the jaw bridge on the front, He-Man logo on the back as usual, and then of course, pop that off. You've got her there in the big window in all of her evil glory. Windows on the side, windows on the top, and then the back of the box has some Filmation artwork of her in the Fright Zone, and then a little bit of a bio. So let's do it. Let's pull her out and take a look. And here she is out of the package, our Club Grayskull Filmation Shadow Weaver. Now, of course, like I said, I don't have the other Shadow Weaver, so there's not going to be a comparison here. And this one is a little bit more exciting for me because I don't have a Shadow Weaver. So this is one that I finally get to actually mess around with in my own collection. And I'm pretty happy with what we've got here. Of course, she is a little different from your standard figure because, well, she's just different. There's a whole different range of motion going on with this figure and just different design aesthetics and choices that make her relatively unique. So as far as articulation goes, you've got a head that can look slightly up and she can look slightly down. She can rotate side to side. She's got a little bit of bobble for attitude, but not a whole lot. Arms go out at the shoulders. They swivel all the way around, but her cape is going to get in the way. Not too much, but it is there. You've got a bicep swivel. You've got a single rotating elbow. So you've got a little bit extra range of motion there. And then you've got rotation only at the wrist. There is no hinge here. You've got a diaphragm cut. So she goes side to side. She bobbles a little bit. She goes backwards and forward a little bit. And then she has a waist twist, which also will give you a little bit more in the bobble region, but not too much. So that's it. That's the full range of motion she has. She is a floating sorceress, though, so it's not too crazy to think that she should be more restricted than other figures. She does move around well enough as far as what joints she does have, but she certainly has less than your standard figure in this line. Now, as far as the overall look and feel of this figure, I think for the most part they've got her down pretty well. There's not a great deal that has to happen with this figure, frankly, because she's covered in a single robe with a belt, and then she's got a black void for a head, so you either get it right or you get it wrong, and I think for the most part they got it right here. They definitely did change things up a little bit in terms of how she's constructed, in terms of the cape, to make things flow a little better, because the original figure was kind of restricted by the cape. This one is just a single piece that attaches at the upper torso, and then the rest of the body is sculpted to kind of flow along with it. So you've got like these billowing bicep pieces here, you've got the billowing pieces on her forearms, and I think for the most part it looks pretty decent. Like, it surprisingly works. This is something that could be really weird in a number of situations, but I think it works well enough here. She's also got the right shape. They've got that kind of flowing, almost, I don't know, like curvaceous look to her that works really well. So they've got this kind of flow that goes down from her hips all the way down to where it kind of billows out at the bottom. And of course, you know, she is supposed to be floating, so there's no feet or anything. There's just a hole down here. We'll talk about why that's there. And then there's really not a whole lot of paint on this figure either. You've got the belt with the very cartoony Horde emblem painted up there. And then she's got green hands, which are painted up in a matte finish. And that's it. There is no other paint on the figure except for the face, which is, again, just a black void, which is mostly obscured by the hood, which also has a really nice look to it. That's a very cartoony looking sorcerer wizard style of hood hat, and I think it looks really great here. The color for the figure itself matches the show. It's very Filmation-y. Just the general aesthetic here, the idea, the very single shaded color aspect of it works really nicely for me, and I think they did a really good job here. The expression on the face is really well done, well, as much as it can be anyway, but you can definitely tell that she is not happy, she is definitely evil, and she's certainly up to no good, just based on the fact that her eyes are slightly slanted. I think they got the look of this figure down really well. Now, as far as accessories goes, this figure has quite a few good ones, really, and I'm pretty happy with her overall spread. There is one thing that I am still not sure if I'm using correctly, but I think I've made some progress while playing around with this one. So to start with, we do have a stand that I sort of touched on previously, and it's just a little clear base, but it works really well. So if you want her to be elevated, it works. And you can take it out and put it back in just fine. I've had no concern about, anything breaking like with the, the Driel and Uncle Montork figures where we had issues with those breaking. This is really simple. It just pegs in, you're done. We've got 2 wands. So you've got one that's already in her hand here with the green orb at the end. And this goes in her right hand really easily. You can take it out, put it back in, no problems. This one is a little bit different. It's a different sculpt, different staff. Of course, it's got a flame effect at the top, but it sits in her hand really, really tightly. I'm concerned that, well, either it's not meant to go all the way through, or it's just going to chip its paint as you actually force it in. So I'm not kind of sending it all the way through. I'm just sort of having it sitting out of her hand, basically. So your mileage may vary on whether that's a problem, but it definitely does seem to be sort of troublesome for me. I'm not really sure yet. Now, the big thing for this figure is that she comes with an energy effect, which frankly is still really few and far between when it comes to this line in general, but Super7's been able to crank out a few. And this one is kind of weird because I'm not too sure how she's supposed to hold it. She has this spellcasting hand, and the only thing I can assume right now is that it's meant to just sort of sit in her hand, sort of like, if I can even do it on camera, sort of like this, where it just sort of sits in there. And that's probably how it's supposed to go, but at the same time, it's incredibly just easy to knock out. There is no chance of it holding its shape like this forever, I would imagine. I'm not really sure if this is how it's supposed to go, but it does work. The other option I've seen is people actually making her hold on to this little bobble piece right here, but the effect is nice, and the point comes across quite well. Again, there's just no designator that this is actually how it's supposed to work. It does work, and it looks the best this way. Any other way I've seen, she's just sort of holding it like it's an effect piece or a weapon, and it's not. So see, it just popped right out. So I'm not too sure. I think that's the closest I'm going to get to be able to implementing this thing, because it does seem like that's how it's supposed to go, but again, no instructions popped out of this thing saying, here's how she holds this effect piece. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this figure. Again, it's coming from a place of, well, I needed a Shadow Weaver, and now I've got one, so I am pretty happy with what they gave us here. I think that she looks very much like she should look. I'm happy with the sculpt, I'm happy with the paint applications where they exist, because again, this figure doesn't really have a whole lot, but she doesn't really need it either. I like the stand they included here. She moves around really well. I like the way they implemented the cape. My only real concern / gripe is that effect piece. I just don't know if it's implemented all that well. I think I've got it down as far as how it's supposed to work, but at the same time, I'm not really sure, because it does seem kind of cumbersome still. It doesn't exactly jump out at you and say, hey, this is how she should hold this. Frankly, it seems kind of weird. Otherwise, though, I think she looks great. I'm really happy to have her, and this is definitely a figure to send the line out with, because I know a lot of folks really wanted this one. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super7 Masters of the Universe Club Grayskull Shadow Weaver. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.